Welcome to another episode of Hey Mumma. I have my next guest on, which is Suzi. Now, Suzi is a mama of two, a wife, and she's also the founder of Paradox Dance Studios and Paradox Activewear based in Wollongabba. So you run this studio with your amazingly talented husband, right?
Yes.
You as a couple, I know I've gotten to know you personally. So I just think that you guys are such a dynamic duo. Like this studio has some fantastic dancers and styles of dancers. Can you tell me a little bit about what styles you guys run at your studio?
Yes, so we have two strands to the business. We have an adult school and a kids school. The adult school is very much international dance styles. So we do Afro, reggaeton, hip hop, dance hall, salsa, literally anything that you can imagine that would be danced on the street around the world, like what the locals dance in their country, but always cool and young and really modern and relevant. So yeah, that's the adult side. Then the kids side, we like to keep that cultural element alive in the kids side, but we do offer the standard styles that all dance schools offer: ballet, jazz, contemporary. But then we have this amazing program, this urban program that we offer street dance and hip hop. And within that program, we teach kind of those styles that we do in the adult stuff. So the reggaeton, Afro, we mix in kind of real fusion styles from around the world, as well as teaching them the foundations of hip hop and where that originates from and the history of it. And yeah, we like pride ourselves on having that really great urban program alongside the style of dance that you need to have the technique to be able to be a good dancer. So we believe that all kids should be able to dance everything, and it's not necessarily about what you love doing or what you don't enjoy. We try and make each style really fun and have our own flair in all of them, so that we can create really well-rounded, educated dancers.
And so would you say that that's what your passion is? Because that's what I was going to ask you next, like why you, why do you do what you do, like you and your husband, and you've created such an amazing, diverse dance studio. Like it is so diverse. I see every single dance style on Instagram, and the stories come up and I'm, oh my God, I want to try that. Oh my God, I just absolutely love it. And you do provide it for everyone. I love the fact that you've got the adult component as well as the child component, because, adults still need to dance too. They still need to express themselves. So why would you say you're so passionate about bringing, the adults and the children's dance alive?
I think when we first arrived in Brisbane, we met, we started off with like an elite kids school. So really, really talented kids that kind of loved Yasim's contemporary style mainly. And we felt that they were all kind of a little bit dead inside and kind of didn't like dance anymore, had been through these really rigid dance school programs, and they'd come out of it like just not wanting to dance. They just wanted to stop dancing.
Wow.
And these were, very, very good kids. So let's say they're probably dancing 15 hours a week or more. And, the mums are quite kind of into them having dance as a career, but they were finding that they'd lost all their passion. And we were seeing that a lot. And we didn't plan on opening a dance studio. Like it just happened. Lots of things fell into place, and that's what we've ended up doing. But I feel like we have put it into the way we've done it because we want to keep dance alive in kids and adults. Like we want them to have really strong training and be excellent dancers, be committed and motivated, but also be learning what's relevant and what's going on in the world. Like some of our kids would say like that they've been learning the same routine for the last 5 years for their concerts every year, or they're in an Eisteddfod group and they learn the same choreography every single year, and it's just not fun anymore.
Yeah.
So really that's, I think, how we've got to where we are now, like just wanting to keep some passion alive. And like when they dance, I want to see like joy coming out of them. I don't want to see like a load of robots like dancing.
Yeah, oozing the love and the passion and the joy, because that's what dancing, that's why you start dancing, because you love to move, and that's an expression and a storytelling. I just love that so much. So take us back to the beginning. Were you always a dancer? Is this how it came about? Or, you know, as a young child, did you do dancing yourself?
I was dancing from a very young age. I was doing ballet, jazz, tap, musical theatre, you know, the usual stuff as a kid in my little village. And I was always a very good dancer. I was never the best in the class. My best friend was the best, and I was like always wanting to be like as good.
It's always the way, isn't it?
Yeah. So I was pretty good. But I think when I went back to my dance school a couple of years ago, the owner of the studio said, "Suzi, you were so good at dancing, but your mum ruined it for you." She's like, she never knew the dates, and she never knew when you needed a bit of competition, and
no.
So I didn't have that commitment like backing me. My best friend's mum was like the ultimate dance mum, and like she was enrolled in everything, you know. That's actually probably really similar to how I mum my kids as well. Like I'm probably the mum that forgets a lot of the things, but so I danced and I loved dancing. But I suppose a similar thing happened to me as a teenager. I kind of lost my passion for it. And I feel like the teen years are super important. You either stop dancing and you want to hang out with your friends, or you get a boyfriend, or you feel like you have to take it that next step and you have to become like a professional or go to dance school or something. So what happened to me, I went to a summer school where I had to stay away from home for a couple of weeks, and I went to this like full-time dance school, one of the best ones in England. And I found... Pardon?
How old were you then?
I must have been around 15. 14 or 15, because it was towards the end of school where you needed to start thinking about like where you're going to go to college and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I went to this summer school, and although I really liked it, I kind of realized then that I wasn't probably good enough to be a professional dancer, and was I going to like waste a career move on dance being my choice. And that was kind of my like really clear, like, no, I'm not going to be a dancer. You know, I love other things, and that in the end I chose fashion. And that was kind of the end of dance for me for a really long time. I just kind of stopped. There wasn't really another option. There wasn't like it was either you do full on dance and you do all your exams, and you're all in England we call Eisteddfods festivals. So you do all the festivals and you're fully in as a teenager, or you kind of just stop. And so I just stopped and just focused on a career in fashion. And then at what, 26 or something, I refound my love of dancing again within like Latin dance.
What made you refine your love of dance?
I kind of was finding that I was finding social situations really uncomfortable. Like I wouldn't like going out and meeting new people. I didn't like talking to strangers. I just was becoming quite an insular person, or like, you know, just within my friendship circle. And I was working a lot and traveling a lot for work, and I kind of felt like I didn't really have anything that I was working on, or, you know, like a hobby, I suppose. So I started, I did a New Year's resolution to myself to like put myself into an uncomfortable situation where I had to touch a stranger. I had to like talk to strangers, and like what better to do that than having to like dance with someone that you don't know, you know. So I joined salsa classes, and within that salsa school they did samba and they did all different Brazilian styles of dance, and I after the first class, I just got completely immersed in the whole thing. Like, yeah, before I knew it, I was in Brazil dancing in the carnival in Rio, and I was teaching samba, and I just became completely obsessed with Latin dance. Yeah, that's it really. I've forgotten the question that you.
That's okay. This is that's good. So you are answering the question. Why do you think you started to go a bit so when you did dancing, were you quite the confident kid then? Did it make you confident and out there, and you weren't worried about meeting people? And what happened between you stopping dancing and getting to 26 years old and started to go internal and get?
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder whether it
about meeting people. What do you think happened there?
I think I became completely immersed in my work. I was the head of a big retailer, the buying department of a big Australian retailer.
Yeah.
And I think potentially I was just probably working too much, thinking about my career too much. And I suppose I'd moved to Australia, and I had a very good group of friends that were only English people. I didn't make any Australian friends. I just was in this little English bubble in Manly. And then I moved to the city, and I think I just kind of put myself in this bubble. And then I realized that I didn't like speaking to anyone else outside of that bubble. Not that I didn't like it, I just didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Didn't feel comfortable, so therefore you didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that's it probably.
Let's let's talk about the love story. Everybody loves a good love story. How did you and Yasim meet?
Yes, so thanks to Latin dance, actually. Like, if I didn't go and do that first sales class, I probably never would have met him. So once I got fully into this Latin dance scene, like completely immersed myself, I lost a lot of friends because they didn't understand why I was so interested in like salsa and samba. Why are you going to Brazil to dance in the, they just didn't get it. And they'd come to my shows and they'd be like, it's good, but like, okay, like weird. So I then became even more inside of the Latin stuff because my friends couldn't relate to me. So I was then teaching, and I started doing shows, like paid shows, as a samba dancer in this Brazilian show. So every weekend I do anything from like 4 to 17 shows a weekend in Sydney, just dancing samba. And one weekend we were sent to Adelaide to do like a workshop weekend of Latin dance. And so I was going with the director of the school to like teach a workshop and do a performance in the evening. And actually I shouldn't have got on that plane, because the 2 girls I was going with, who was the owner of the studio, who was going to be running the whole thing, they missed the flight. So I got on the flight alone. She was like, you'll be fine, Suzi, just teach the workshop and you're gonna have to do a solo. And I was like, what the heck? I don't want to do that. Like, I almost did not get on the plane because I was like, there's just no way I can do that and like represent your school as one of your students. It's like ridiculous. So anyway, I got on the plane. I spent the day with the person organizing the program, and that night she took us out, and we were supposed to go and pick up some dancers from this company called Ballet Revolution, which I'd never heard of. They're apparently these like famous Cuban dancers. And I was like, nah, whatever. Where's Cuba? I was like, I didn't even know where Cuba was at that point. And then we sat outside the hotel for like 15 minutes. And then she was like, oh no, they've been so they were on tour doing shows. And they're like, oh, they've been dancing all day. They're too tired. They're just going to stay at home. So I was like, oh, okay. So then we went off and had an awesome night out. And then the next day, my teacher finally arrived, thank God. And she taught the workshop and we did our show together. And then after the show, all these gorgeous looking Black Cuban guys came into the room. And the lady of the organizing the event, she was like, Susie, come over here and have a picture with the Ballet Revolution boys. And then I was like, these must be the people that we were supposed to go out with last night. Anyway, so then I go over and I stand next to Yasim, and my friend stands next to the other boy, and we have a photo with them. And he was like this little cute guy with this like rat's tail, like all the way down to his bum. Like,
really?
Yeah, he had like 2 braids, that like shaved head here, straight like spiky hair here, and these 2 rat's tails. I was like, he's a cute person. I like how quirky he looks, you know. And then just kind of left it there. And then we danced all night with all the different people in the event, and he asked me for a dance, and then I only danced with him for the rest of the night. And we couldn't speak to each other, not one word, because I couldn't speak Spanish and he couldn't speak English.
So the connection and the energy was just there.
Yeah, it just must have been some kind of energy connection. Like, yeah, we just connected with each other instantly. It was really strange. So then, we just danced all night. We spent the night together. We like tried to communicate with each other through Google Translate.
I would have done that too. I would have like downloaded an app or something. And
how can we speak to each other? And the funny thing was the girl I was with, who owned the Latin school that I was dancing for, she could speak Spanish, so she was kind of translating stuff for us as well. But it honestly didn't even matter that we couldn't speak to each other. We just like wanted to spend time together. And then in the morning I just thought, I probably won't see him again. I'll give him my number and my email address, and then you know, like, what are the chances really that you're going to see him again? Because he was flying to Perth that day to start the Perth tour. And then from there he just messaged me as much as he could, and I you know, I was
English like, or
I think he was messaging me in English mainly, which has kind of been the way it was the whole way through. Like, he would always do the translating, I think. So then I thought, this guy's quite nice. Maybe I'll try and fly to Perth to like see him again. But I just couldn't make it happen with my job, and I just didn't. We didn't see each other again. We just continued to speak for months on email, but because in Cuba, when we met, 2014 or 15, there wasn't internet in Cuba. So he finished his Australian tour, and then he had to go back to Cuba for 6 months. So at that point, he would just go on the street at like 2 a.m. and try and connect to the internet, try and speak to me, and just really like on and off communication, just because of Cuba being difficult.
There's a lot of effort to go to, like to go and find the.
Yeah, exactly. And I never forget him saying to me, you know, I spoke to my mum about you, and she said that, you know, if this girl's worth it, then you got to learn English. Just try and speak to her. Like, you've got to do anything you can to like connect with this girl.
That's so
that was kind of how it started. And then he ended up being, so his job basically took him on tour every, like, I don't know, he'd do like 6 months in Europe, then 3 months in Cuba, then 3 months in Australasia, like, you know, so basically he was just traveling all the time. So then his next tour was Europe, and I just happened to be in England on a buying trip for work. And so then I nipped over to Germany to see him in Germany, because I was intrigued by this person who was making so much effort to speak to me. And, you know, we'd really like got a connection going by then, because he'd been on tour in Europe for a little while, which meant that we could speak every single day, like all day long, every single day. And so when I went to Germany, we kind of, like, he could speak more English. He'd been practicing. And so we kind of made a different kind of connection in Germany, because we could actually have a conversation together. And we were both like, I really want to see you again. I don't know how, but I'm going to see you again. And then he was like, I'm going to pay for you to come to Cuba to meet my family, because like, you have to, like, you have to meet them. You need to meet my son. Then he had, Christopher must have been 7 or 8 at that point. So yeah, then that happened. He booked me flights to Cuba, and I went to Cuba to see him. And really in Cuba, like, we fell in love. Like,
that's where you fell in love.
Yeah, I was like, I tried to push him away at points because I was a bit like, this is a bit scary, and I don't know how you're ever going. I don't know how this is ever going to become anything, because I'd looked into visa situations, and Cuban visas are impossible. Student visa was going to be impossible, and I was just like, I really like him, but I just have no idea how this is going to be an option.
Yeah.
So anyway, once I got to Cuba and I met his family and I saw his life, he's like, a lot of Latin guys are dodgy and mess you around, and I'd been messed around in the past and I was a bit reserved. But when I kind of saw that everything he'd ever said was real and honest, and the communication had been open between his baby mama, and everything was open and clean and fresh, and there was no drama ever, then I was like, okay, like, I really like him, maybe there's some kind of option. And on the last day, I remember sitting on the beach, like, crying in his arms, like, oh, how are we going to see each other again, like, so hard. But anyway, from then on, we were like, nah, we're on a mission now. This is it, like, we will be together. And that's kind of how we are always. If we have an idea or a dream, like, between the two of us, we always find a way of making it happen. So what happened then? I went home. I resigned from
Australia?
Yeah, went back to Australia. I resigned from my job as head of buying, like the dream job in the world, and I went and opened my my activewear brand, Paradox. So the plan was to quit working as a buyer so that I could go and live with him, and I would open up Paradox Activewear and kind of trade it from wherever I was in the world with him.
Wow. So you live with him in Cuba?
Yeah. So I quit the job, I started Paradox, naively thinking, oh yeah, that's fine, I'm a fashion buyer, I make millions and millions of dollars for these retailers every single day, I can do this for myself.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So basically, I'm a brilliant buyer and product developer, but I knew nothing about marketing, like zero. And marketing is what sells your stuff, so that didn't really work. I mean, it's ticked along, and I've always had Paradox as like a passion, and that was always going to be like my main thing. But then I met Yasim, and everything else happened. But so I got a job in a cafe working like 4 a.m. till 12 p.m. And then I'd work on Paradox from 12 p.m. until the nighttime. And then I'd go out and do samba shows, just so that I could like work on my own business, so that I could have freedom in my life, and save money to go and move to Cuba to be with him. So that's what I did for about 5 months. And then we booked the flight, and we'd already decided at that point that when we got to Cuba, we would get married. And no one knew. I told my mum and my brother like 3 weeks before.
Like, and how did that go down?
By the way, I'm going to go to Cuba and marry someone that you've never met.
On the other side of the world.
Yeah. Do you know what? They were amazing. I think that they believe in my judgment always. Like, if I feel like something's right, they're like, you haven't made any stupid decisions in your life so far. Like, we trust in your judgment, and whatever happens, we're here for you. Like, super unbelievable. Thank God.
Beautiful family.
So yeah, that's what we did. I moved to Cuba. We had the biggest mission trying to get married. It was like the most stressful thing in the world. All of the papers that we'd arranged were wrong, and the Cubans didn't want to help. They basically didn't want to help him marry a tourist so that he could leave Cuba. That's what it boils down to in the end. Anyway, the English embassy sorted everything out for us, and we managed to get married. And that was September 2015. And no, 16. And then from there, we we went to go and live in England with my parents for 6 months while we were waiting for his visa for Australia to be approved. And so we spent 6 months in England, and then we moved to Brisbane because I got a job here. Otherwise, we were planning on going back to Sydney, but we ended up in Brisbane just by chance of getting a job and being like, that's a great opportunity, let's just go there. And so we came to Brisbane with not one friend, about $1,000, and that's it.
Oh my goodness.
And then we started our life here. So yeah, that's kind of, it's quite a long story, but that's basically what happened.
And you have 2 babies now.
Now we have 2 babies. Basically, a month after arriving in Brisbane, I got pregnant with Rumi.
Yeah, because that's how life happens.
We were like, oh God, like he can't drive. He's still really like, his English was still like really like learning at that point. But we'd found ourselves in this situation, and we had to find a way to make it work, you know. I couldn't be a fashion buyer with a kid because you have to travel so much. So we were like, what can we do now to like earn money? And so he started teaching, you know, like random dance classes. We just hire a little space, which is actually our studio now. We hired that by the hour.
Where you started to hire before you had the other one in West End.
Yeah. So we did like just one-off classes in like Cuban styles, and he became really popular, and we just went from there.
And so tell me about when you're pregnant with your first baba and started teaching, and then were you teaching as well, or?
No, I was working up until a couple of weeks before she was born. So I was still buying at that point. And then I was just kind of already like at that point, I was kind of managing his classes and like arranging classes and marketing the classes. So I was already kind of doing the role that I am now, without realizing where it was going to lead to.
You would have just been like in the mind frame of I'm helping him.
Yeah. I knew that Yasim needed to dance. Like he's amazing, but he's a dancer and that's it. He's a professional artist. He needs that. He needs music and dance and theatre and stage, and that's what he needs in his life. So I was like, you know, I need for him to be happy in what he's doing here, you know, because I had taken him away from the best job in Cuba, you know, like touring the world. He was dancing in the opera house. He was dancing for the Queen in England, you know, he was at that level. And I always kind of thought, oh God, you know, I've taken him away from this amazing job. But, you know, that was me. But actually on his point of view, he was like, no, I was ready for that. It's an exhausting life, you know.
Yeah.
And we both knew he needed to dance. He needed to continue to dance in some way. So that was the way of keeping it going, you know. And he was doing performances in different festivals and things like that. And you know, from that point on, we were always together. We never ever did anything separately.
The dynamic duo.
Indeed.
As I said in the beginning of the conversation. And I love the fact that you knew your roles, you know, like that's something that Pete and I struggled with from very early on. We tried to do everything, both of us, rather than learning the roles of which to play, like the strengths and the weaknesses. Yeah. So that's what makes you such a strong couple as well, is, you know, you know where you fit into the business, and then he knows what he does, what his job is.
Yeah. I mean, we have clashed over that. Like we definitely have like I've tried to overmanage his dance and like, you know, question decisions he's made about music or choreographies or teams or the way he's handled a team I've learned over time that he knows himself more than anyone in the world, and he will always make the right decision, and I've learned to trust him with that now. But yeah, it's always kind of been a very like, you do this and I do this. And I think if I was more, if I had have been a professional dancer and he a professional dancer, then it would be completely different. But because I've always you know, been in business and managed businesses, and it was like a very smooth, like, you're running the business and you're the star of the show, and that's always just worked for us.
And so you had little Rumi. And how did that go, like, for you? Did you adjust to new motherhood easily? Was there some challenges there, like you didn't really know anyone in here, neither of you had family, or did you had family here?
I have a brother. My brother was living in Sydney at that point, so he might as well have not been in the same country.
That's right. In Australia, that's what it is. I mean, with Rue, from the beginning, like, I was in the studio with her like 9 months pregnant, ready to pop. We always had her everywhere. So when she was born, we were still doing casual classes, hiring out random places. But we'd become very popular in the reggaeton side. Like, no one taught reggaeton in Brisbane. And, you know, I was like, Yasim's amazing at that. So let's start reggaeton classes. So we started teaching reggaeton at Mad Dance House. And so he became really, really popular there. So then we started to get more of a following in different styles, and people started to see, he's not just a contemporary or Afro-Cuban, or he does urban stuff. So we started Afrobeat and dancehall, and, you know, all the different styles. And then one of the buildings we were renting, he came to us and he was like, I can't afford the rent. Do you want to take on this room? It was just one studio. But at this point, Rumi was 3 months old. So I was like a very new mum with no support. Being like, let's take on a dance studio. That sounds like a great idea. But we kind of saw an opportunity, and there was no way I was going back to work. And we were like, let's just try and make this work. So we took on this building. It was in the back of an African drum shop. So you'd walk in through this like drum shop with like all these African masks everywhere. It was quite a daunting place to walk into. And we basically raised Rumi in there. She from the moment we opened our doors, she was down here on the reception desk in her bouncer at 3 months old, bouncing along to the music. And so we went from having like maybe 3 of our own classes a week to Monday to Friday, 6 till 9 p.m. And Yasim was teaching every single class. And we were just there all day, every day with him in the studio. With one person in the class, then turned to like 25 people in the class. And then the building was full and we couldn't fit any more people in. She just spent her whole life, her whole first year in the studio with us. And we never changed anything for her. Like, some parents find it really helpful to have a very big routine, and, you know, they really structure their life around the child, whereas we were like the complete opposite. She did whatever we did. She slept whenever she wanted. We did everything we could to make it comfortable for her. And she slotted in perfectly to that life. Like, you know, she just loved being in the studio. She loved the music. And you can see that in her now, that's how she was, like, from being in my tummy inside his classes to being the first year of her life in a studio. That would be her comfort. Like, she would seriously come out, and I could see that, because I know even Logie would sleep better if we were at the gym. It's the movement, it's the sounds, it's the smells, it's
they just adapt to it, you know, like a mum who you know focuses her life around home. The baby adapts to that, and then they can struggle to sleep outside of the house. Or so thank God Rue was really, really adaptable with that. If she wasn't, we wouldn't be where we are now. Like, we would have had to have stopped for her. So I'm so glad that she was good. I did struggle like a lot with anxiety, hugely. Taking on that building as a new mum was like probably a little bit of a mistake for my mental health.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah, with your anxiety, what was causing, or what do you think, or what triggered it?
I think it was financial. I still don't really know like where my anxiety comes from. I think that it's financial security.
Mhm.
I'm worrying that we're not going to have enough money. Like also like I didn't feel like this as much in the beginning, but like being judged as a mum for having my baby there.
Yeah,
I
okay.
didn't know anybody then to care if they were judging me. I couldn't care less. But now people know us and watch our family a lot. Now I get kind of mum guilt about, the lifestyle that my kids have. But yeah, I think initially the anxiety was all financial, because we didn't have any other income. Like we had to make the studio work. It wasn't an option. Like it just wasn't an option. And I think that's mainly where it came from for me. And kind of like, because the business happened as a bit of a mistake, it was a bit like we didn't really have a business plan. It just evolved. And so we were kind of like floundering around trying to work out like, what are we doing? Like, what is our goal? All of that kind
Like
of
a
stuff.
sink or swim kind of thing, though. It's like if you get thrown in the water, that's what you've been thrown in the water, you've been thrown in the deep end, and you've got a choice to either sink or swim. And you kind of don't have a choice because you have a family. So you have to swim.
Yeah. So 100% that's where the anxiety comes from.
Yeah.
I feel like after the first year of having the studio was like severe anxiety. Like I would wake up and I'd be like, I don't know how to get through the day. Like I don't know what job even to do next.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so bad. I ended up to a naturopath to try and work out so if there was something holistically I could do, because I'm not one for, medication or anything like that. But nothing really helped. Nothing helped. I feel like the only thing that's ever helped is like success, like becoming successful and financially stable. And Rumi growing up and, being less demanding in like, I was breastfeeding her in the corner of the studio while people are all there like dancing, like my motherhood journey was the most open thing for everyone to see, so I think her growing up and becoming easier to handle, all of that kind of
but
stuff.
what made you, so some people would crumble with that, right? So some people would sink, and they would sort of essentially give up or not be able to, if you woke up and you thought, I don't know how I'm going to go through the day. What made you still go through the day, do you think?
I think probably like our end goal, like by that point we knew we wanted to have a studio, we knew we wanted to have an entertainment company, we knew we wanted my brand to be like the forefront of the business. I think like the ultimate dream keeps us going even now. We know what we want to achieve, and like we just got to do it. I can't, if I've got a bad day, I can't sit on the sofa and like lull in my anxiety. I just have to push through it, and that's literally what I do. I might achieve 50% less, but I still will achieve something in the day, even though I'm feeling, I'm having
that's what I was going to ask you. Like, do you ever take, when you're having that a bad day or the anxiety or brain fog and all that kind of thing, do you ever listen to that and take some time out, or you, like you said, set yourself one task to do that day, or the bare minimum? Like, what is your strategy?
Yeah, exactly that. I never would sit on the sofa and stop, because then I would go into deeper guilt of, I'm not doing anything. I haven't achieved anything today. Like I will achieve something, might not be very much, but I'll try and push through and achieve something. And I'm seeing that more now. Like I've been not feeling very, very well recently. And I've had 2 days where I've physically had to just go to bed. Like I'm feeling really sick and I can't not. But I think then I just could go to sleep because I was feeling terrible, like illness wise. But if it's an anxiety day, I'll never go and get in bed and hide under a pillow.
Yeah. So I think like your body will tell you, if you don't actually stop, your body will force you to stop. And I have those moments as well where I'll go and feel really great and just keep pushing through, and then your body will just crash you down to force you to rest. And I think you're wired the exact same way.
Yeah.
So the sickness will actually manifest for you to go, right, Suzi, you need a break. Yeah. And then you'll upgrade, and you'll probably come out from that and you'll be able to think more clearly, and you'll be able to go on and go, okay, we've got to do this and this. And, you know, I want to get out to the audience that you have just literally had in the last year, less than a year, you've had a studio flood. And then you had to rebuild and renovate another studio. So yeah, of course you're going to have those days where you're going to have to rest.
Yeah. No, it's been an intense year, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, an intense 6 years. I was trying to count up like how.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. Since I met Yasim, life has been a roller coaster, but one.
Yeah, I was going to say, would you have it any other way though?
No, I would change some of the disasters that's happened that is out of our control.
Yeah.
But, you know, like all of these things are sent to test us and to teach us different things. And like, we definitely have learned that in the last couple of years.
Yeah. And in the midst of this, you have had a second child too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we had Arlo in January 2000 and oh my God, I don't even know. Last year. and he's a completely different baby. So Rue was easy and fitted into our world. Arlo spent the first 3 months of his life screaming from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m., which is like my peak time where I need to be in the studio. So for him, we had to completely like adapt differently.
Yeah. How did you handle that?
Well, luckily then we were living in West End and we lived opposite the studio. So, you know, I could just walk home and be at home with him if I needed to. And you know, the business was successful enough that I had staff working there. It was a completely different ball game to when Rue was there, when it was just me and Yasim. You know, now we've got 15 teachers and 2 admin people that help us with everything.
Wow. Yeah.
So
yourself a team.
A team is so important, and even now it's probably still need a few more people.
You should have more team.
Yeah, but he's awesome. He's as he's got older in the last couple of months, he's kind of slots into the new studio quite well, because now I know the building, I know where he can be and where he can be safe, and I've got a room upstairs with a living room and a cot and an office and a TV. You know, I can hide up there if I need to. Like we've just basically created what we need for our family to survive in what we're doing, because obviously we now have to rebuild the business completely. But there was a time there where it was a nightmare because we didn't have a studio. We lived in the Gold Coast, the business was in Brisbane, and we had this 1-year-old baby that had nowhere to go. Like, he would just be running around the students' feet while they're trying to dance, and I'm there trying to chase him down, and then the anxiety came back.
I could imagine.
Yeah, massively came back.
What I think our audience will really get out of in this conversation that we've had today, and I pull a card. So I pull a card on every conversation that I'm about to have. I ask, the angels, what's the message for me? What's the message for my guest? And what's the message for the audience? And today it was a very clear truth. That was the card for today. And I think that the message here that we're going to get across to the mums out here is that nothing is easy and rosy when you're trying to achieve something, and when you are so driven and have like these amazing goals, these big goals. There's a lot of little cracks and hiccups and challenges and beat downs that happen along the way. Like people might view you as, oh, you're so successful. Oh, you've got this amazing dance studio and my life must be just so peachy keen to be so successful. But I love to listen to your journey on how you actually got there.
Yeah, definitely.
And the tears, the blood, sweat and tears.
Yeah. Nothing ever comes easy, and it's still like a daily fight, you know. But you just got to remember the end goal. And just keep like climbing up that hill. And then a rock hits you in the head, and then like keep climbing.
There's great pictures out there on memes and stuff of actual overnight success is like a lot of this. It's not just overnight success. So I want to thank you for being so open about your life and about this subject and about the journey that you guys have been on in your business, and I just love it. I'm in awe. There's no judgment from me that your children hang out at the dance studio all the time. I was a dancer as a child and I absolutely loved it, and I can relate to so much that you say about when you get to teenagehood, it's either you quit and you focus on your social life, or you go forth and you really commit to the dancing career. And I was that teenager that was missing out. I thought I was missing out on socializing. And so I quit, and I always was mad at my mum for allowing me to quit at that time. And
exactly
with Miri, I might push her a bit. Like I don't really have to push her a lot, but I know that this time is so, so crucial, that at teenage years, they need that hobby. They need that discipline, that commitment, keeping them busy, keeping them out of trouble, all that kind of thing. So I can totally relate with a lot with what you're saying, and the grinding as well. And my kids grew up in the gym, and and if you think of it like this, you would much rather them grow up in a gym or a dance studio and have that healthy habit than growing up around an alcoholic, or growing up in the pub or other damaging, unhealthy habits.
Exactly. I hope we can I really, really would love to create like a space for teenage kids to like continue to dance. Like they don't need to have that break at 15. They can carry on all the way through till 55, or
definitely.
Like have a space where they can come and hang out with their friends. And I don't even care if you're dancing, come and sit in my kitchen and hang out. Like that's what I really like. I really like it.
I really like it too, and I love what you're doing, so keep doing it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Mumma. You can find all the relevant links, including socials, in the description section of this podcast. If you want to find out more information about how I can help you build your best body after babies, then visit my website, www.thefitmummethod.com, for more info. Lastly, before you leave here today, if you've enjoyed listening, then please subscribe and share so you can help me to reach out to those mamas that also need to listen too.